How many of you have ever heard of the Klerksdorp Spheres? Anybody? These are very interesting things. You see right there, it's spherical. It says the Klerksdorp Spheres are small objects, often spherical or disc shape, that have been collected by miners and rockhounds. They found it, and supposedly, these are evolutionists, so they talk in terms of billions of years. Supposedly 3 billion year old rock deposits. They found these things. Well, they were digging, I don't know if it was a diamond mine or a gold mine or whatever, but they're digging deep in the earth, and in supposedly 3 billion year old deposits, they found these curious little artifacts here. Many people have talked about them, but just off the top of your head, looking at that, what does that look like to you? Something you may have seen in pop culture before, in a movie maybe. What does it look like? Death Star. Exactly. That's exactly what it looks like. It looks just like the Death Star. Death Star on the left, the Klerksdorp Sphere on the right, and in the middle is a moon of Saturn, the moon Iapetus. You have to wonder what George knew, because these things were found after George created Star Wars. And the moon Iapetus is very curious. It's kind of like our moon. One side of our moon faces the Earth at all times. We can't see the other side of our moon. Same thing with Iapetus. We can only see one side of Iapetus from the Earth, and it's not that side. That side became known to us when the Cassini space probe went out to Saturn, took a little ride around the backside of Iapetus and took a picture of it. And that's what they found. Iapetus happens to have a 60,000-foot high wall going across its equator. And many scientists have looked at that and said if there's anything in our solar system that appears to be an artificial construct, it is the moon Iapetus. That just so happens to look like the Death Star. And when Cassini continued to fly around Saturn, took a little ride over the top of Saturn, it saw that the north pole of Saturn, which is often associated with Satan, has a hexagon-shaped formation rotating at its north pole. That's not a shape you typically find in nature. And on the south pole, there is what looks like the all-seeing eye rotating on the south pole. The all-seeing eye on the bottom and the hexagon on the top. Very, very bizarre. With the Death Star orbiting around it, apparently. We have on the planet Mars, the Cydonia region, some people call it the city complex, of pyramidal-like structures there, and of course the face on Mars. You've heard many people probably talk about that. Mars also has a potato-shaped moon orbiting it that has a very large monolithic structure on it that people like astronaut Buzz Aldrin has gotten on mainstream news and said, we got to get out there and figure out what that is.
We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there?
There's a lot of strange things out in space in our solar system, and some of it's making its way here to our planet. There's been a rash of UFO sightings, more and more increasing. It's becoming, we're seeing it on mainstream news reports now. It used to be back in like 70s, 80s, even maybe 90s. There was always that whack job out in the field somewhere that, you could floss his teeth with rope, and you'd say, I got abducted by aliens and took me up in a spaceship, And there's always the weirdo. It's like, yeah, people travel for billions of light years and they come and take you. Why did they take Einstein or something, So, it used to be tinfoil hat stuff. But now, everybody's seeing this stuff. It used to be a big joke, talk about mile-wide spaceships parking over cities, until a mile-wide spaceship parked over Stephenville, Texas in 2008. And everybody saw it. Stuff's happening. This right here was a UFO that shut down an airport in China a couple of years ago. I put together in that Mount Herman Roswell DVD, there's an 8-minute montage that includes live video footage of that. 8-minute montage in that DVD. Since then, a whole lot more have happened. I'm going to have to redo that one, update it with some more stuff. We're seeing a lot of UFO activity. And as my friend L.A. Marzulli is fond of saying, he says, UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. He's right. They are real, they are burgeoning, and they're not going away. We're going to have to deal with it. How many churches are preaching about this? So people have questions, right? Where are they supposed to be able to get the answers? We're supposed to have a ready defense for everything, right? Well, if we're not addressing this stuff, where are they going to go to get their answers? Ancient aliens, right? That's where everybody's tuning into the History Channel right now. I'm telling you, fallen angel activity is increasing, and it's only going to get worse as the days draw closer to the time of Christ's return. I like something else that L.A. Marzulli says. He says, rebuke first and ask questions later. You don't want to see these things. A lot of people are curious. They want to see these things. No, you don't. I don't believe that they're aliens from Arcturus or Orion or any place like the Pleiades or whatever. No, we're talking about fallen angels. We're talking about demons. This is all Genesis 6 stuff happening as it was in the days of Noah. And not only did the UFO activity get a kickstart in the mid to late 1940s, but that was also the beginning of the nuclear age. We started splitting atoms and things like that. And from 1945 to 1998, 2,053 nuclear bombs were blown up on this planet. 2,053 nuclear bombs. What is that doing to our atmosphere? And even worse, some physicists wonder what's that doing to the fabric of time and space. Some suggested it could be ripping holes in the fabric of time and space, maybe allowing entities to come through it. And how many of you have ever heard of this individual here, Phil Schneider? Anybody? A couple people here in the front row. Do a Google search on Phil Schneider if you want to go down a rabbit hole. He died in 1996. Previous to his death, he had been on tour across the United States speaking out about various subjects, including his involvement with building DUMBs. Have you ever heard of DUMBs, deep underground military bases? That's what they call them. A lot of these things showing up around this country and around the world. During this time, he was working on a secret underground base in Dulce, New Mexico. He was working on a project for the military. During this time, he said that he had an encounter with a violent ET underground, a whole race of them apparently, in the late 70s. He apparently shot at a so-called alien, and it shot back, taking off several of his fingers, messing him up pretty bad. He's pretty messed up physically. Like I said, Google him. Listening to him makes one wonder if there is some sort of war taking place underground, and maybe that's why we've blown up so many subterranean nukes. We had a lot of nukes of the 2053 that were blown up above ground, but they blew an awful lot up underground as well. And when you listen to people like Phil Schneider, you have to wonder if maybe there was something more going on underground than what we were taught. So just putting it out there for your consideration. Then you have this interesting structure in the Vatican. In Paul VI's audience hall, this is a sculpture done by an artist named Fazzini in 1977. He calls it the resurrection and explains that it's Jesus ascending out of the crater of a nuclear bomb. I'm like, I don't know what Bible he's reading. I don't remember anything about that in my Bible. Maybe it's a different Christ, like an antichrist coming up out of the bottomless pit. I mean, could this represent the false prophet and the Antichrist? The false prophet, Petrus Romanus, as Tom Horn and Chris Putnam would put it. I don't know, but it's a very bizarre structure in the Vatican depicting a giant coming up out of the crater of a nuclear bomb. So could the Nephilim be inspiring us to do this nuclear thing? I think so. Look at how much evil is associated with that. All right, so again, the last days equal the days of Noah. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. The days of Noah versus Jared again, the days of Jared were marked by the creation of angel human hybrids, whereas the days of Noah were marked by the creation of animal human hybrids, which brings us to a discussion of transhumanism, which I believe is a doctrine of devils. We see in Genesis chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. You see a few promises of the serpent here. 3 of them. A promise of immortality, a promise that their eyes will be open, they'll have greater wisdom and understanding, and you shall be as gods. You know what's interesting about these 3 promises? Adam and Eve already had all 3. They were already immortal. Death didn't come until after they sinned. Your eyes shall be open, greater wisdom, understanding. They walked with God every day. How much more wisdom and understanding do you need? Hey, God, how did the Milky Way come about? Well, let me tell you, Adam. I mean, seriously. You shall be as gods. They were already made in the image and likeness of God. So the serpent promised them 3 things they already had. They believed the devil instead of trusting God. And as a result, they lost all 3, and man's been trying to get it back ever since. Ever since, right? Professor Nick Bostrom is an individual. He's one of the spokespeople for the transhumanist movement. Listen to what he has to say. I'm going to play a 1-minute clip from a documentary called Building Gods. And keep these 3 promises in mind. Immortality, eyes, wisdom, understanding, and you shall be as gods. Keep those 3 promises in mind as you listen to Professor Nick Bostrom.
What I'm really interested in is to try to understand the bigger picture for humanity, our place in the world, and what might lie in store for our species in the future, particularly the way we might use technologies to enhance ourselves or to go beyond what we currently think of as our human nature, whether it might be by radically extending the human lifespan through solving the problem of aging, or increasing our intellectual capacities, improving our memory, or taking control of our own emotional states. I think that we are right now in a transitional phase where before the end of this century we will either have gone extinct, or we will have most likely taken the step to become what you might call transhumans or posthumans, or just very enhanced humans that have reached their full potential.
Did you hear all 3 promises in the same order? I'm like, wow. Here's a chart that I got from his website that depicts what their plans are, what their objectives are, what they're trying to do here. You see in the lower right corner that pink circle, that represents the sensory modalities of humans. What we can see, hear, taste, touch, smell, the senses that we have. The long gray oval there on the bottom is what's accessible to animals. We know some animals can see in frequencies that we can't see in. They can hear in frequencies that we can't hear in. Radar of a bat, sonar of a dolphin, different things that animals have that people don't have. And so they said, well, what if we blend animals and humans? What kind of senses could we end up with then? And you got this big orange circle that he says that might be what would be accessible to transhumans. And if we keep tinkering with the genetic code and coming up with mixing, these codes and experimenting, maybe we'd end up with this really large oval there, the yellow one there, might be accessible to post-humans. We will be like gods. That's what they're doing in major universities and labs around the world right now. They're doing Genesis 6, 1 through 18. And speaking of animal-human hybridization, check this video out.